In this video, just want to have some feedback then on the new interface in Oxygen. So when you load up the new version, you'll see it is slightly different and so much easier to get to, for example, the breakpoints, which is really great. And you can also easily see if an item is styled by the ID or by a class. If that was now on a class, you'll see that the color would change, or should change to green, to indicate that this is now being edited and has a class allocated. At the moment still showing the blue, but technically that should change to the green. So at the moment it says styled via ID, even though I've assigned a class to it. Anyway, that should change. That's just a minor tweak, I'm pretty sure. So just some of the other issues I'd like to raise is the colors are very neutral and there's not a lot of contrast. So when you select an item on the page, what you're going to find is that it's really difficult to find here in the listing unless you have a good idea of where it is. And the reason for that is that when you select an item, the color goes dark, goes close to black. So instead of working from dark colors to light colors, so if you look at the way that the human brain works, our eyes are always drawn to the areas of most contrast first. So what's happening here is that instead of going from a selection which is dark and then highlighting the item that's selected, what's happening is the item that's selected is now getting a low light, and the low light then pushes it back. So when your brain has a look at the items, looking for something that's been selected, it's looking for the item that's been highlighted. And what we're seeing now is that you actually have to change your thinking and look for the item that has a low light. So in that case, with the black background, if that had a different background, if that was a lighter background, your eye would be drawn to it a lot faster. So to illustrate that, if I just change that background color, so make sure I've got the right element here. So if that was the element and that's the background color, and I was to make that lighter, so you can immediately now see that if I was looking for the element selected, I would immediately be drawn to the div, which is much easier on the eye because it's the lighter color. Whereas at the moment what's happening is when you select, it's actually being low lighted and going to a darker color. And the way that the brain works is that when you look at color, whatever's in the background, so what the selections are all backgrounds, and when you highlight something or select something, it then is brought to the foreground. So in my humble opinion, I think that the highlighted area should be slightly lighter and not darker. That will make it easier to identify. Another thing which I found a little bit irritating was when you mouse over these icons here, you will see that you get a tooltip that pops up, and nothing wrong with the tooltip. The only issue I have now is that instead of showing the sub menu for an item, you now have to click on the item to get to the sub menu. So when you hover over here, instead of just showing the sub menu, which would then in effect be the tooltip, because when you hover over, if you were presented with an icon showing exit and WP admin or front end, then you would know that this is to exit immediately. So I think here maybe just to give you the sub menu to exit straight away would be great, instead of having you to first click and then make a selection. So anything with a sub menu, it would be great. The same thing here with settings. It would be nice then if you hovered over settings, instead of seeing the word settings, because the gear icon we associate with settings, a suggestion would be to actually have the sub menu of page settings, editor, or global settings, so you can go straight to that position. The other thing I found a little bit odd was that when you moused over this button, it disappeared. Now I don't know if I must now go to the save changes or if I just click where I am. So once again, using that low lighting instead of highlighting your selection, I'm not sure if I should click on this or if I should look for something else. So I would recommend that when you mouse over this blue icon here, instead of low lighting, highlight it. So maybe go from a dark blue to a lighter blue, so that I know that yes, you've gone from a deselected state to a selected state, and yes, you can click. Because when you're working from darker colors to light colors, if you think of it as moving forward or backwards, as you go towards the lighter colors, you're moving forward, it's getting closer. When I go to the dark colors, it's moving away from me. So when I click on this, when I hover over these icons and the background turns dark, they're actually moving away from me, which in other words means it's background. There's nothing to do here. If it was highlighted, it would be moving forward, and that would be saying, right, you're moving from the background to the foreground, and yes, you can do something with this element. So that's just some feedback on the color. Once again here as well, you'll see that when you mouse over, you'll see that you're going from the, once again, the buttons are low light, not the highlight. And what happens if you're sitting in an area where you have a strong backlight behind your screen, so for example, you're sitting in front of a window, and you're moving your mouse over those items, you're not going to see the contrast, because that black actually fades into the background and you can't see the element. So the suggestion here would also be that when you're moving over an item, that as you move over it, you highlight it and bring it forward instead of low lighting and pushing it back. Another thing which I found which also was a little bit odd for me, was the when you select these elements here on the left hand side, it's great that you can see more on a page, but now what I'm finding is that with this color being so close, all the colors being so close to each other, I'm not actually able to see the icon clearly. So what I'm finding myself doing now is I'm actually reading what each of these items are. I'm not actually looking for the icon, whereas before I would look for the icon and I would do less reading. Now I've got to read every single item here before I make a selection. And once again, as I mouse over, we are using that same low lighting effect, and I'm not seeing it as a highlight. It's being pushed back instead of forward, which is do something with me, instead of to the back, which is now I'm in the background, I'm not that important. So I would say to move that around so that as you mouse over, the item gets a highlight. The other thing that I would do is I would also, these icons need definitely to have more contrast and to be lighter, because once you identify the icon, the human brain will work a lot faster because we'll be drawn to the icon, and we read less if the icons are clearer. So when you're working with Oxygen a lot, it would be nice then if you could have these icons just clearer. The size is fine, it's very hard to see. The other thing that I would suggest is that when you come to areas here, and I've only picked this up now because I'm forced to read everything and I'm not able to easily identify by the icon, is that they're not in alphabetical order. So when I look for something now, I can't immediately move down to the position that I would expect it to be in. I now actually have to read everything again. So I would suggest that the items be arranged by alphabetical order, so that it makes it very easy. Then you know that if you're looking for a video, it's going to be at the bottom because it's a V, and if I'm looking for an image, it'll be at the top because it's an I, and everything else will be in between. At the moment, I don't know where to find it, and I'm not sure what the reason is behind the sequence of the items, but it looks pretty random to me. So it can't be by popularity, because the priority of the icons will change depending on the website you're working on. So I don't know how that sequence is created, but I would recommend that it be standardized in alphabetical. And even the same up here, I get the idea of a section, then a div, then a column, but still I would say that one makes a bit of sense. Heading text, rich text, I would still convert that to alphabetical, Standardize with alphabetical all the way across. That way, at least once your brain understands the pattern, then you will immediately go to the item that you require. So that would be my feedback on these elements. The same would apply in the helper section. I don't know why the elements are arranged in the order that they are. It makes no sense. It's I can't see what the thinking is, and so to find something I have to read every single item to find the item that I'm looking for, instead of making, for example, the composite elements alphabetical, or for example the interactive elements. It's just very difficult to work out what belongs where now. There are quite a few of them, so once again alphabetical. And then also the icons, it's actually with the low contrast and also with the low lighting, it's just making it really difficult. I find myself working in an uphill direction, and instead of being able to speed up, I find that I'm slowing down. And even though I know what I'm looking for, I find that I'm actually now doing a double take and double checking myself to make sure that I'm at the right place. So I'm finding it a little bit counterintuitive when it comes to working with the interface. The neatness, the tightness, I mean, it's a lot better. Love the clean look and the feel of the interface, but just finding that the low lighting is having me second guess, and also having to read everything is slowing me down from a development point of view. So those are just my initial thoughts about the colors that are used in the interface. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed the video.